Hi there, and thanks for joining me again today as we are going through more nuggets of wisdom as wisdom speaks from Proverbs chapter 19. Today we're in Proverbs 19 and verse 3, and it's a statement that says this: when a man's folly or foolishness brings his way to ruin, his heart rages against the Lord. That one always struck me. It says that when a man's foolishness brings his way down, in other words, foolish decisions that we make, then what happens? He gets mad at God. In fact, here it says his heart rages against God. You know, that's a problem that we see in life. I mean, we go back to Adam and Eve, right? If you believe in Adam and Eve, what happened? God goes, what happened? And Adam goes, wait a minute, it was the woman you gave me. In other words, we're always blaming the wrong guy. We are upset with God when it's our own foolish choices. Our choices that go against God's will, that go against God's word, and yet our heart rages against God. When nations turn against God and nations start reaping what they've been sowing, you get a nation of people that are anti-God. They don't believe in God. If God was really there, then why would this happen? And yet we're the ones whose foolishness, our decisions that we make that go against God, cause problems in our life for us, for others, for those that we love, and yet our heart rages against the Lord. I remember talking to somebody once, and they just couldn't get their head around the fact that God lets tragedy happen or things happen. And I don't mean necessarily the innocent tragedy that happens in a fallen world, but when people make just bad decisions and then there's a consequence in their life for that, and yet they blame God for that. When all along God's word says, don't do this. If you don't do this, your life will be blessed. And yet we go against God's word. We go against God's plan. We think we're better than the Creator. And it's our own foolishness that actually trips us up, ruins us, and yet we get mad and we rage against God. You know, I was on a phone call recently, and I have to admire, there was a guy who was not doing well, his health wasn't doing well, and he says, you know, this was my choice. All along, God had been warning me through the doctors to take care of this issue, and I didn't, and I just let it get bad, and it went from bad to worse. Now, what I would say about this friend of mine is, I pray God, God's grace into his life, and that there would be healing, and even though he made this mistake, that God would help bring the healing into his life. But at least my friend took responsibility for the fact that, you know what I did was foolish. I'm the one to blame, not God. And yet in a world that's around us, we find the blame game going, and most of the time, instead of looking in the mirror at us or realizing that there are satanic powers in the world working to influence us, we blame God. This was very thought-provoking for me. And whether it's something big or something small where you're upset with God, you're blaming God, I think what God is calling us to do is to maybe take a step back, maybe pray, and do some real genuine self-reflection. There's a saying in recovery, and it says this: to thine own self be true. In other words, don't put up the smoke screen, don't play the blame game. Really look at your own life. Find out what's going on in your life that might be hindering you or even hurting you and hurting others. And stop blaming God. And instead, go before God, ask for his forgiveness and his grace to help you live the abundant life according to the will and the plan that he has for you. Well, I hope you were blessed today with this nugget of truth. Thanks again, and I really look forward to seeing you next time.